Back here at New Hampshire International Speedway as a race presented by CC's Pizza today. We're under our first caution as it is still Joey Logano in front of Carl Edwards, Brian Vickers, Kevin Harvick, and Scott Speed. That's your top 5. And we will now have a total of 20 cars on the lead lap as Elliott Sadler will get the Aaron's lucky dog. Now, there is the Aaron's lucky dog right there with Elliott. Let's get an update on Carl Edwards. What's going on in that pit, Dave?
Marty, you always try to diagnose things as best you can between the crew chief on top of the pit box and the driver behind the wheel. The driver's looking at all his gauges. Sometimes he sees something funny. Listen to this conversation.
The low voltage light's on, and I am running out of volts, down to 12.2. Turn everything off. You can turn every fan off. Okay, you got a switch there at your low voltage light. You need to turn that off. Flip it, flip it. You're going to have to explain which switch you're talking about, buddy. There's a toggle switch right there at the low voltage light. You just flip it, and then we will count the laps until it comes back on.
That last voice was Daryl Morrow. He's the car chief and in charge of putting these cars together. Let's go back to Tim Brewer in the Craftsman Tech Garage and talk about all the different things Carl may be experiencing where voltage is concerned.
Tell you what, in the first place, folks, he hadn't got enough alternator, just like Andy Petrie said during the break. But you've got a switch right over here. It's ignition, the auxiliary switch. You got brake blower switches. You got a lot of fans. Every time you flip one of these switches on, you draw more current from the battery. But to change the battery, he also told him to go from A battery over to B battery. Now, that's going to correct a lot of the problems. But I'm like Andy Petrie. He's going to cut off a lot of switches over here, but the air conditioner is not going to be one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be the first one. I'd tell him to turn off. Hey, turn that helmet air conditioning off. See how many volts you got now.
That's because you're the crew chief. What about you, driver?
Yeah, I mean, if I was in Carl Edwards' shape, I could turn that thing off too. So that will be the first thing that Carl will do. He's plenty good enough shape to withstand that, having that off, and you know, probably will solve their problems. But the one thing that he has to be careful of, you know, we don't want to heat up those tires and the beads of these tires, and with the brake heat there. So he's going to have to try to make sure that he doesn't get himself in trouble there.
All right, well, while we've got a moment, you heard that all the changes that Dave talked about that were going on the 60 car. Let's take you back and show how this little tap dance worked.
Yeah, you see they're putting a little bit extra tape on the grill. I guess the water temperature probably a little lower than they wanted it, and you can stand a little more tape here, get some more downforce. All this is in the right direction, try to get him a little more speed.
And Dave, you got one more update?
Yes, the fact that the other thing that he wanted during that pit stop was a refill on the water and a bag of ice. So if Carl does turn off that air conditioner, he'll have a little extra liquid on board to help cool himself.
Yeah, doesn't take any battery power to have an ice bag in the car.
All right, we're getting ready to go back to green flag racing. Before we do, happy birthday, Johnny Benson. Remember, he was in a crash a few weeks ago. He's home recuperating. He's 46 years old today. And get well, Johnny. We miss you. Coming down in the green flag here at New Hampshire International Speedway, it'll be Logano, Edwards, Vickers, Harvick, Speed, and we're back to green flag racing.
Got them 3 wide back here going into 1.
Yeah, Brendan Gaughan, that might be questionable in NASCAR's eyes. You can't pass to the left until you cross that start-finish line. They might consider that an attempt on Kenny Wallace.
It's going to be close
there.
And those are both lap cars. They are down a lap, and that you won't see next week at Daytona when we go to double file restart.
There's a lot at stake right there, though. Those guys are racing for that lucky dog spot in case the caution comes out.
And they know this is a time that caution could happen with the cars all bunched up.
Got a real log jam coming 3 wide through. That was Justin Allgaier as he was able to hold on to it. Down in that treacherous turn 1, everybody continues to make it through. It's still Logano, and there is the onboard view from Allgaier as he is running in 16th position. He's been the best Dodge all year, but as we get a pass for the lead, Carl Edwards maybe turning off all those switches gave him some more horsepower.
Yeah, a little more power and a little more tape on the grill, some more downforce.
Yeah.
He's got and a few adjustments on probably tire pressure. Got him going in the right direction.
And Joey Logano was one of the drivers that told me that these cars were really a handful on low air pressure. Whenever he did that yesterday, he said, man, it's just hard to drive. It was so loose, and you could see the back end step out right there.
Yeah, he's got his hands full right now, and I don't think he's panicking yet because the same thing happened at the start of the race. He lost the lead to Carl Edwards, but he got it back as the tires came up to pressure and temperature.
And Brian Vickers goes around him for second.
Yeah, we saw how much better the 20 car was on the longer run. He was able to stretch out over a 2-second lead, so he's just going to be patient right here, I think.
So those three running in formation. A little further back, there's Brendan Gaughan as he's the lap traffic there.
And he has moved ahead of Kenny Wallace for that lucky dog spot. These guys are racing hard among these leaders. You see these other cars are on the lead lap. Kyle Busch, Jason Leffler. Here's 9th place, swapping hands here.
Mike Bliss in the number 1 gets around Greg Biffle in the number 16. Sort of surprised a little bit. I thought Biffle might be one of the guys a little further forward in the field by now.
Yeah, and talking to him before qualifying, though, he wasn't very happy with his race car. He made a great qualifying effort, but he said in practice yesterday his car was extremely loose getting into the corner.
Yeah, he was talking about even how the tires were chattering, the rear tires chattering, getting in the corner. That's not something you want to have going on.
Now, and this is one of the few places that you'll find that happening. It's just one of the characteristics of this racetrack and the tire that Goodyear brings here. It works awfully well. If you can hang on for a few laps, then it usually works out better.
There you see the view from Ken Butler. He is one of our cars that is a lap down. He's in 24th position right now. Meanwhile, back up front, we're watching closely as Brian Vickers, the former champion, is closing in on another former champ.
Yeah, he's putting some pressure on. I was watching his lap times, you know, earlier in this first run, and he was one of the faster cars. He didn't have the track position. He's got some now, and he's able to do something with it.
He's been really good in this car for the last couple of years, and this is a team that, you know, they run the full schedule here, but with different drivers in the car. But Brian seems to really get the most out of the cars and the team whenever he's in the seat.
Well, from that shot, you can just see how the cars are just sliding through that corner with the back ends hung out. The drivers have a handful keeping the car under control here.
Take a look at this, Stephen Wallace in the 66 as trying to check and see where
he's up in the 13th spot. Stephen is. He did a good job in that first segment of hanging on.
Yeah, he's just taking it over. So as we come back on Greg Biffle, we've got more. Jamie from pit lane.
Well, he's 10th right now, Marty, and he has been very frustrated, and I think it goes back to the tires during practice.
I never drove something so tight in my life. Just tried to arc it in there and just chattered both front tires the whole way. Just unbelievably different than practice, you know, with those tires. That's the way to run this series. Had to practice on junk tires and then, you know, race on good ones.
In an effort to save money, Goodyear had teams who had an extra set of tires from Milwaukee bring those here to Loudon and run them in practice. Now, the conditions were very different once they put the new tires on this car. That's exactly what Greg Biffle's talking about. They never hit the setup just right, Marty.
So that could explain why he told you back then it was loose, because of a different set of tires.
Yeah, I hope that's it. He wasn't just pulling my leg or giving me false information here to go and tell the whole world about.
Well, it's not the first time that these cars have been a handful to figure out, as we are running on lap 68 of 200, and there's your top 5 here at New Hampshire International Speedway.